Hello viewers, today we are going to discuss the lesson Negotiation and Mediation. The objectives of this lesson are to understand the dynamics of negotiation and mediation, to explain the role of a negotiator and mediator in resolution of a dispute, to discuss the legal dimensions of mediation in India. Across the world, there are disagreements between neighbors, family members, relatives, colleagues, friends, and others. Over the period of time, courts have become the formal and central institution of resolving disputes, as they are backed by public trust and state authority. But apart from the court system, settlement of disputes through mutual talks or with the help of an impartial, learned third party have been in prevalence all along as informal methods of dispute resolution. Generally, disputants approach the court only as a last resort after exhausting all these remedies. Owing to the limitations of court litigation like lengthy complex procedure, lack of control, impersonal process, and high costs, these informal processes of resolution have come to the forefront and identified as negotiation and mediation in the modern day world. Negotiation is generally practiced by the parties before going for litigation, and mediation has become very popular and most favored process of dispute resolution. It is necessary to understand the basic requirements of disputants and types of response to dispute for proper administration of negotiation and mediation. For effective resolution of disputes, the parties must be clear with their positions, interests, and needs. Positions are the stands taken or demands of the parties. Demand for increase in wages by the workers, demand of custody of child by father or mother, etc., are examples of position. Underlying these positions are the interests and needs of the parties, which form the reasons for the demands of parties. For example, for the workers, the interest and need is adequate compensation and work security, and for the employer, it is uninterrupted production and profits. For the parents, the interest and need is welfare of the child. Needs are what the parties really want, and interests are long-term requirements governed by needs. The interests or needs of both the parties can be met, but the demands of both the parties cannot be satisfied. Hence, to arrive at an effective settlement, the parties should move away from their positions and be oriented towards their needs and interests. Now, let us look at different types of responses to dispute. There are 5 basic types of responses of parties to the dispute. Firstly, avoidance, where the party denies the existence of dispute and does nothing. This may result in escalation of dispute. Secondly, accommodation, where the party completely surrenders to demands of other party, and this may result in dissatisfaction of the party. Thirdly, competition, in which the party wants to control and dominate and fights all the way to get yes to its demands, which results in a win-lose situation. Fourthly, compromise, in which the party splits the difference by reducing expectations so that both parties gain something, but yet the result may not be satisfying. Fifthly, collaboration, where the party tries to bring out innovative solutions to the problem by substantial use of communication, focusing on shared interests, resulting in a win-win situation. It is most appropriate especially when relationship and issues involved are important and it puts an end to dispute. In this background, let us move to the concept of negotiation. Negotiation is a dialogue or discussion between two or more persons aimed at working out a solution to their problem. Negotiation is done in our everyday life with parents, spouses, children, friends and others, and involves accommodating, adjusting in order to achieve a solution. It is also reflected in complex international disputes where nations negotiate with each other looking for an amicable settlement. There is no statutory definition of negotiation. According to P.C. Rao, negotiation means a non-binding procedure in which discussions between the parties are initiated without the intervention of any third party, with the object of arriving at a negotiated settlement of the dispute. Honorable Justice Krishna Iyer has said that a legal adjudication may be flawless but heartless, but a negotiated settlement will be satisfying even if it departs from strict law. Now, we will analyze the dynamics of negotiation. There are two principal strategic approaches to negotiation. Firstly, distributive or competitive approach. Secondly, integrative or collaborative approach. In the distributive approach, parties compete with each other and one party has to give up something in order to result in a gain to the other party. It is a basic form of negotiation in which interests and needs of the parties are irrelevant and parties assume a fixed solution to the dispute and do not look for mutually satisfying solutions. The parties bargain with each other and try to give and take the difference through a sequence of continually diminishing moves, which is called as negotiation dance, and they tend to agree to a settlement that is about halfway between the first two reasonable offers. The zone where there is a chance for settlement is called as zone of possible agreement. Let us look at a situation where A wants to sell his bike. The value of A's bike is 50,000 rupees and he wants to sell it for rupees 65,000 and gain a profit of 15,000, whereas B wants to get the bike for 45,000 rupees. A firstly offers to sell the bike for rupees 70,000, knowing that it will not be immediately accepted, and B makes an offer of rupees 40,000. Here the dance begins and A starts reducing his price and B starts increasing his price. The agreement can be reached anywhere between 50,000 rupees to 60,000 rupees. This is zone of possible agreement. In the integrative approach, each party attempts to understand the interests of the other party with a view to achieve a better solution which is satisfactory to both parties. It consists of joint problem solving, and gains of one party are not viewed as loss of the other party. The parties look to expand the pie and try to reach a win-win situation. For example, if there is only one orange available and two persons want the orange, in distributive approach, either of them may get the orange or both of them may get one half each. But in an integrated approach, upon discovering the interests of both parties, it is revealed that one of them wants to have the fruit in the inside and other wants the peel for applying it on the face. As such, needs of both the parties can be satisfied in an integrative approach. Professors Roger Fisher and William Ury of Harvard Law School have developed the method of principled negotiation for arriving at mutually satisfying solutions. It is based on 4 principles. Firstly, separate people problems from substantial issues. Secondly, transform positions into underlying interests. Thirdly, generate multiple options for mutual gain before deciding. And lastly, use mutually agreed objective criteria. It is also essential for the parties to be aware of their alternatives in case of failure to arrive at a negotiated settlement. The party shall be conscious about best alternative to a negotiated agreement, that is BATNA, and worst alternative to negotiated agreement, that is VATNA, which will guide the parties to steer through difficulties and help in deciding terms of settlement. In India, negotiation is not governed by any statute, but it is not prohibited and can be practiced by parties to resolve their dispute, and the settlement agreement is enforceable as a contract. It can be adopted even when case is pending in court, and upon arriving at a settlement in a civil case, it can be withdrawn, or the court may pass a compromise decree in terms of settlement under Order 23, Rule 3 of CPC, for which the agreement shall be lawful, that is, with free consent, valid consideration, and shall not be opposed to public policy, morality, or decency, and shall satisfy the requirements of Indian Contract Act. Whereas, in a criminal case, the offence can be compounded under Section 320 of CRPC. Now, let us move to mediation. Mediation is a voluntary process in which a neutral third party facilitates or assists the parties to a dispute to arrive at a settlement. It can also be understood as assisted negotiation, and the dynamics as in negotiation also apply to mediation. According to Black's Law Dictionary, mediation is a private informal dispute resolution process in which a neutral third party, the mediator, helps disputing parties to reach an agreement, but the mediator does not have power to impose a decision on the parties. The mediator is a trusted person who enhances communication between the parties by making them focus on their true interests and orients them to remedies and solutions. It is a confidential process, and any admissions, proposals, or offers of settlement made during the process cannot be used as evidence in subsequent litigation or arbitration. Even the Honorable Supreme Court in Motiram versus Ashok Kumar held that in case of failure of court referred mediation, the report of mediator should only state that the mediation was unsuccessful and should not disclose anything else. There are 2 models of mediation practiced throughout the world, that is, facilitative mediation and evaluative mediation. In the facilitative model, mediator endeavors to facilitate communication between the parties and helps each side to understand the other's perspective, position, interests, and needs in relation to the dispute. In the evaluative model, the mediator provides a non-binding assessment or evaluation of the dispute and suggests the terms for settlement, which may be accepted or rejected by the parties. Let us look at advantages of mediation. It is a voluntary, participative and confidential process wherein parties get opportunity to present their case directly and have liberty to opt out at any stage. It is speedy, efficient and economical. The procedure is simple and flexible, and parties have control over the process in terms of its scope and outcome. It helps to maintain, improve and restore relationships between the parties. It focuses on interests of the parties and ignores the inimical positions. It prioritizes on resolving the dispute in a mutually beneficial settlement. The parties are free to come up with creative solutions to the disputes. It is a fair process where the mediator is impartial, neutral and independent person. It promotes finality and puts end to dispute without scope for further litigation. In case of court referred mediation, the parties are entitled to refund of court fees. Let us discuss the qualities of a good mediator. A mediator should be a person of honesty and integrity. He should be impartial and neutral towards the parties. He should be wise and understand the situation correctly and decide the right course of action. He should maintain confidentiality and transparency in the mediation process. He should have the expertise to understand the technicalities of the dispute. He should be courteous and shall respect the parties. He should be a good listener and shall assess the interests and needs of the parties by attentive listening. He should be patient during conducting the mediation proceedings. He should have sympathy and empathy towards feelings and problems of the parties. He should shift the focus of the parties from positions to interests and guide them in reaching solutions. We will now look at mediation in India. Mediation in India can be categorized as private mediation and court referred mediation. Private mediation refers to mediation of disputes where parties themselves go for mediation without reference from court. There is no law governing private mediation in India, and settlement agreement is enforceable as a contract. If mediation is done in respect of a case pending in court, the parties may withdraw the case after settlement or report compromise and obtain a decree under Order 23, Rule 3 of CPC for a civil case, or compound the offence under Section 320 of CRPC for a criminal case. Court referred mediation relates to cases which are referred by court for mediation under Section 89, Order 10, Rules 1A, 1B and 1C of CPC. It is governed by ADR and mediation rules laid down in the case of Salem Advocates Bar Association versus Union of India, and it shall be understood from decision of Supreme Court in Afcons Infrastructure Limited versus Cherian Varke Construction Company Private Limited, which deals with the issue. Let us examine the process of court referred mediation. In a court case, after filing of plaint and written statement and before issues are framed, the courts should identify whether the case is fit for reference to ADR. If it falls under any excluded category, the court should record a brief order as to the nature of the case and why it is unfit for ADR, and shall proceed with framing of issues. If the case can be referred to ADR, the court should explain the choice of arbitration, conciliation, lok adalat, judicial settlement and mediation to the parties to enable them to exercise their option. If all parties agree the case may be referred to arbitration or conciliation. If the parties are not agreeable to arbitration or conciliation, and if the court finds the case to be suitable for mediation, the court may refer it to mediation with or without the consent of the parties. The parties then may agree to appoint a sole mediator, or each set of parties may nominate a mediator who need not necessarily be from the panel of mediators available with the court, but an insolvent person, a person of unsound mind, any person convicted or being prosecuted in a criminal court or being tried in a disciplinary proceeding for charges relating to moral turpitude, any person interested or connected with subject matter of the dispute or related to the parties, a legal practitioner who has appeared or is appearing for any of the parties are disqualified from being the mediator. Mediator shall facilitate the parties to arrive at a settlement and shall not be bound by Indian Evidence Act or CPC. The mediation shall stand terminated after 60 days of reference, unless the same is extended by the court either suo motu or on application of the parties, but the same shall not be extended beyond a further period of 30 days. If the mediation fails, mediator shall report the same and the court shall proceed with hearing of the suit. On the other hand, if there is a settlement, the mediator shall send the settlement agreement signed by the parties and their counsels to the court along with a covering letter about settlement, and the court shall make a decree in terms of settlement as per Order 23, Rule 3 of CPC. The mediator enjoys immunity and shall not be held liable for anything done bona fide during the mediation proceedings and cannot be summoned by any party to court. Now, we will study the difference between mediation and conciliation. If we look at the history, the term conciliation was in vogue before the 1980s, and later the term mediation is being used more often. In India, the term mediation has been used in section 30 of Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996 and section 89 of CPC after the 1999 amendment. The committee appointed under the chairmanship of Justice M. Jagannatha Rao for framing ADR and mediation rules has dealt with both conciliation and mediation and brought out some differences between them. Let us look at these differences with respect to India. Conciliation is governed by Part 3 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, whereas mediation is not governed by any statute, but court referred mediation is regulated by mediation rules framed by the high courts in tune with the rules laid down under the Salem Advocates Bar Association case. In the light of Supreme Court's judgment in Afcon's case, the court can refer a case to conciliation only with mutual consent of the parties. But if court considers that mediation is suitable and appropriate, it can refer the case to mediation either with or without the consent of the parties. The conciliator, in exercise of powers under sections 67 and 73 of Arbitration and Conciliation Act, tries to settle the dispute by making proposals and by formulating or reformulating the terms of possible settlement. But as provided under the mediation rules, a mediator facilitates discussion between the parties directly or through the mediator, assists the parties in identifying issues, reducing misunderstandings, clarifying priorities, exploring areas of compromise, generating options in an attempt to solve the dispute, and emphasizes that it is the own responsibility of the parties for making decisions which affect them, and shall not impose any terms of settlement on the parties. According to section 74 of Arbitration and Conciliation Act, the settlement agreement in conciliation shall have the effect as if it is an arbitral award on agreed terms passed under section 30 of the Act. It shall be final and binding on the parties and enforceable as a decree of civil court. Further, as per section 73, the settlement agreement shall be signed by the parties and authenticated by the conciliator, whereas the settlement agreement in mediation does not have any statutory force by itself and is enforceable as a contract. In case of court referred mediation, if settlement is arrived, it shall be signed by the parties and the same shall be forwarded to the court with a covering letter of the mediator. Then the court shall pass a decree in accordance with the settlement under Order 23, Rule 3 of CPC. Mediation and conciliation both are voluntary processes, where a neutral third person tries to bring about a settlement between the parties. The Supreme Court in Afcon's case also opined that, as per Black's Law Dictionary, the term mediation is a synonym of conciliation. In India, United Kingdom and UNCITRAL model law, mediation is referred as a facilitative process, whereas conciliator plays a proactive interventionist role. But in USA, mediator has a greater proactive role and conciliator is a mere facilitator. From this lesson, we have understood the process and strategies involved in mediation and negotiation and analyzed their importance and legal implications. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. See you in the next class. Thank you.